Hello, everyone. Welcome to Save News TV. And today we are live. President Trump is supposed to bring the receipts for the um, request that's been given over and more transparency. Before the press conference began, we're going to catch you up on a little bit of news. And one being is that JFK Jr. has been confirmed, and we are excited about that. You know, we want to make America hand. So RFK Jr. being confirmed. Let's read this up here on the screen. Okay. So with a 52 to 48 vote, Mitch McConnell being the only one who voted no, the Senate has confirmed RFK Jr. as the Health and Secretary of Health and Human Services with a vote that nearly saw unanimous Republican support. However, Mitch McConnell voted, and the Senate will also vote on to confirm President Trump's Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. This afternoon, the Senate is expected to vote on motions of closure in the confirmation of Secretary of Commerce nominee Howard Lutnick and Small Business Administrator nominee Kelly Loeffler. The Senate Perennials Press Gallery, the schedule of confirmation votes today, and as you can see them there, that these are the votes that should be coming in today. And the Gateway Pundit, the Senate on Wednesday voted along party lines 53 to 47 to invoke culture on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s HHS nomination. This came after Susan Collins voted against Donald Trump's other cabinet nominees, such as Pete Hegseth told CNN that she would vote yes to confirm RFK Jr. He needed 51 votes, and as we can see that he has been confirmed on this vote. We are excited that RFK Jr. has been received the nomination so he can do what he promised that he would do. Let's make sure he does, and that is to make America healthy again. And so we are excited about that as we wait on the president. We will go over some more news, some things that is happening in the world of politics. The one thing about waiting on press conferences, they a lot of times do not start on time due to other things that's going on. So we wow. You know, as Trump is going to be bringing receipts to this press conference, let's look at some of the things that has been spent, and that is HHS splurged more than $22 billion on grants for migrants, including cars, home loans, and startups. The Department of Health and Human Resources ramped up grants for migrants from 2020 to 2024, which included cash assistance to buy cars, homes, and even business credit to start businesses, according to a shocking watchdog report that found taxpayers were left on the hook for $22.6 billion. HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement, which came under fire last week, for having lost track of 32,000 migrant kids in the U.S. I think that number is incorrect. I think it's 300,000. They missed a zero. Handed out a large sum of most of a host of nonprofits, effectively acting as giant magnets for those crossing the U.S. border and claiming asylum. Authors of the Money Monitor Open the Books revealed exclusively to the Post. Tasked with settling migrants, asylum seekers, and other refugees in the United States of America, ORR drastically increased the number of non-citizens eligible receiving funds over the bulk of President Joe Biden's term, with more than 10 billion shelled out for grants receiving organizations just in fiscal year 2023. This is insane. It is insane the amount of money that has been spent on this, American tax dollar paying for. Wow. That coincided with all-time records being set for the southern border crossing into the U.S., with 2.4 million apprehensions by Custom and Border Patrol over the same period. Non-governmental groups bilked taxpayers up to 1.7 billion in services, including dollar-for-dollar matching, savings plan for cars, homes, college education, or startups, small business loans of up to $15,000, loans for credit repair up to $1,500, cultural orientation, emergency housing support, legal assistance, and Medicare. Listen, um, you know, I know I use another car. Can you? Do I need do we need to cross the border illegally? This is crazy. Crazy work here. Okay. Um, some programs were only available to migrants or refugees who had been living in the US for several years, who were employed or were making around double the federal poverty level or less, among other stipulations. The most funding, however, was spent on unaccompanied migrant children, with 12.4 billion obligated over the 5 years, even as federal whistleblowers were calling out ORR for placing many of the 291,000 kids in their care with unvetted and at sometimes abusive sponsors. The Shining Needle, with its walls and doors making rooms for legal migrants and legitimate refugees and asylum seekers. But the ORR has made a mockery of the vision in recent years. Open the Book CEO John Hart told the Post. ORR is part of a troubling trend of using nonprofit groups as ideological proxies. Vast sums are being outsourced to evade accountability and prop up an immoral exploitive system that is hurtful to both American citizens and people in the other countries who are longing for a better life. Thursday's report comes after the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, came under fire for sending around 80 million, subsequently clawed back by the Trump administration on Tuesday, to put migrants up in New York City hotels and provide other services. More than 2.6 billion went out the door in fiscal 2020, 2.6 billion in fiscal year 2021, 3.3 billion in fiscal year 2022, 10 billion in fiscal year 2023, and 4.2 billion in fiscal year 2024. The fund traces where obligations spent, meaning not all the money has been dispersed so far. It sounds like a clawback opportunity for them to bring this back in, rein this money back in. Hopefully. Migrants from Colombia and Haiti, humanitarian parolees from Afghanistan and the Ukraine, migrant visa holders from Afghanistan and Iraq, and unaccompanied minors from abroad were all eligible for grant programs. The watchdog group pointed out that the windfall came as ORR was expanding access to counsel for migrants and eliminating the need for other non-citizens like refugees to become economically efficient as quickly as possible. Two of the top groups receiving funding in the fiscal last year, were Church World Services, which opposed a joint agreement between Biden and the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, closing an asylum loophole on the northern border, and the International Rescue Committee. Since 2020, the former has netted $355 million in grants, while the latter received $592 million, according to the Open Books report. Robert Marcos, the senior HHS official who oversaw the ORR program for solo child migrants during some of that period, had previously reported that more than 30 years combined profits. In June 2023, testified to the House lawmakers that her office was not even criminal background checks on juveniles as part of the program to let the hundreds of thousands of migrant kids and became along with mostly costly for ORR. Then HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra had pushed his staff to release migrant children to sponsors as quickly as possible, liking the ideal turnaround to an assembly line, the New York Times previously reported. Wow. Excuse me. Hart slammed ORR's treatment of migrant kids and said it had revealed the left's counterfeit compassion around immigration. Losing track of 300,000 children violates their dignity and puts them at risk, he said. It's in the report, the Open the Books claim Don Marcos' past work for nonprofits receiving ORR grant posed a conflict of interest. Reps for Don Marcos' office said the statement that after being appointed in September 2022, she had reclused herself, been reading a lot all day, reclusing herself from approving funding for any past employer. The Books Open nevertheless submitted the Freedom of Information Act to ORR's parent company, the Administration for Children and Families, where Don Marcos served until email bounce backs, the group noted, suggests she departed government service after President Trump took office on January 20th. While Don Marcos have disappeared from ORR, our questions remain whether certain nonprofit organizations receive special treatment and billions of grants furnished by the government office. Report concludes. What's clear is the ORR has funded a constellation of NGOs deployed in border states and nationwide who give out aid designed to attract even more migrants. So anyway, wow, we are definitely on this news. President Trump will be making his um speech soon. As you know, when you have live press conferences, they don't always start on time. And so sometimes we just have to wait. So as we wait, we will be reading some of the news that's coming into the newsroom and what is else is happening. Um so yes. So let's see here. We shall be coming in soon. Yes, yes, yes. Let's take a quick what went on in the news here. Um Also, Kathy Hochul, as you know, the Pam Bondi, the new attorney general, has sued the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, um, Letitia James, and the director of the DMV in New York. So Kathy Hochul was supposed to meet with President Trump today, but after Pam Bondi, the name is Bondi, filed a lawsuit against them. We can safely say that Kathy Hochul don't want to meet with Trump right now. So let's go over this story that's trending here. Governor Kathy Hochul postponed a Thursday meeting with President Trump after the Justice Department revealed it was suing the state of a sanctuary status. I want to say the people um, do know who Pam Bondi is, and a lot of people don't know who Pam Bondi is. All I can say is that Pam Bondi is that girl.
Illegal aliens.
Let's listen to Pam Bondi from yesterday, because I'm gonna tell you, she is that lady. This is from her press conference
Over
yesterday.
American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next. Millions of illegal aliens with violent records have flooded.
Okay, I gotta hear that again. Pam Bondi said, I tried to let you know, but you didn't listen. So guess what?
We're here
You're next.
today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next. Millions of illegal aliens with violent records have flooded into our communities, bringing violence and deadly drugs with them. And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois. Strike one. Strike two is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready.
Oh, I just had to play that, y'all. Pam Bondi's like, okay, I tried to warn you all.
We're here today because
either
we have filed
get compliant
against
or
the
you're
state.
next. So they did not get compliant, and Pam Bondi said, "Guess what? You're next." So anyway, back to the other meeting. Kathy Hochul has postponed Thursday meetings that was scheduled after the Department of Justice revealed that it was suing New York State over its sanctuary status. Hochul had planned to meet with Trump for lunch today, but scheduled it to next week, citing the immigration. It comes just hours after DOJ slapped the Empire State with the lawsuit over its policy seeing cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Also, we have to note that Pam Bondi also pulled back $80 million of from the Trump, I mean, from New York State also. So Pam Bondi has been busy. And so, okay, New York has chosen, this is what Pam Bondi said, as we just saw. New York State has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in her announcement of the suit, it stops. It stops today. The lawsuit filed in the Northern District of New York targets the state's green light law, which grants driver's license to illegal immigrants. In 2019, the law also bans inquiries into immigration status and prohibits the DMV from sharing personal information with feds and law enforcement unless ordered by the judge. And so this is very dangerous, is which Pam Bondi shared yesterday, is because it's like when a police officer stops the car, just like, we're driving and, they get stopped or whatever, or anybody gets stopped. The officer can inquire, your driver's license, registration, and all of that stuff. Well, there's certain things, if it's a legal alien, that they cannot do. They get special privileges over the American citizens, and Pam Bondi says enough is enough. Okay, so the 2019 law also bans information. Okay, I just read that. Hochul office quickly hit out at Trump's AG in the wake of Fowler, calling move quote unquote dramatic. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, I remember when Pam Bondi was the AG in Florida. America is going to learn today. Okay, Pam Bondi is no joke. She is definitely a formidable attorney general. I remember when the floods happened in the eastern part of the United States, hurricane, and Pam Bondi was the AG in Florida. Pam Bondi warned the vendors and people selling stuff, you are not going to price gouge people or else I'm coming after you. And she did just that. Pam Bondi, as the AG of Florida, was very, very effective in going after crime and everything else like that. So if these sanctuary cities believe for one moment Pam Bondi's playing with them, they better rethink that, because Pam Bondi is not playing. Again, I know people are coming in and going out and coming in, but the President Trump is with any press conference, it takes a while. Sometimes they're late due to other things going on. So while we wait for the press conference, we are going over news that you might have missed, that has not been covered anywhere else. Okay, so here are the facts. Our current law allows federal immigration officers to access any DMV database with a judicial warrant. That's a common sense approach that most New Yorkers support, Hochul's statement said. But there's no way I'm letting federal agents or Elon Musk shadowy Dodge operation get unfettered access to the personal data of any New Yorker in the DMV system, like a 16-year-old kid learning to drive and the most vulnerable people. Oh, girl, please. I mean, why would I'm telling you, this is insanity. They just go to the most extreme, if ICE security are looking for driver's license, they're looking for a specific set person. They're not going to all the records of the driver's license people. I just tell you, it's amazing to me that these states want to fight against arresting criminals. It's just amazing to me that that's what they want to do. That's the hill that they want to climb and die on. Again, President Trump will be with us when he does. So, this is we're reading the news now. The article goes on to say, um, it comes after DOJ asked the federal judge last week to strike down sanctuary policies in Illinois and Chicago, arguing that state and local officials are an obstacle to the Trump administration migrant crackdown. As you know, we sued Illinois, Bondi said Wednesday, as she announced the legal fight against New York. New York didn't listen, so now you're next. That's a Pam Bondi move. You did not listen to the warning. I gave you a warning shot and you did not listen. So now we're suing you. So also, I'm looking for, unless New Jersey, because the top four is California, New York, New Jersey, and Illinois. Now she sued Illinois and just sued New York. So the next on the list will probably be not California, but New Jersey. Now, this is just my personal opinion that the next state that she will sue will be New Jersey because of their sanctuary laws. But I think she's going to save California, the best for last, because that's going to be the big hit. And Pam Bondi is very strategic. So I'm telling you, I'm rooting for Pam Bondi. If they're taking bets on if they're taking bets on who Pam Bondi is going to go after regarding sanctuary states and cities, I am going to put my money on Pam Bondi because she is definitely that person. She's very qualified and she is definitely that person. So the article goes on to say, it also comes as Trump border czar Tom Homan has slated to meet with Mayor Eric Adams Thursday morning in an effort to secure a commitment from him to help round up and deport illegal criminal migrants. Also, remember that um, Tom Hochul is the border czar. And, oh, hi, Doug. How are you doing? Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're waiting on President Trump to come with his press conference. So while we're doing that, we're just talking and covering news, everybody. So anyway, you know that the DOJ dropped charges against Adams because I believe that he's cooperating. They believe that it is lawfare against Mayor Adams, but as you also notice that when Pam Bondi filed the lawsuit against New York, she did not include Mayor Eric Adams. So that gives me the belief that Mayor Eric Adams rating with Tom Homan and the DOJ to get the criminal illegal aliens arrested. So that's what, we are, in belief of, because that's the way it is. All right, so we continue on. There will also there will be a second time the pair met, and was expected to be a contentious sit down, with the border czar reportedly not happy with how his nerves action to help Trump's agenda. Homan is not happy and hasn't seen enough progress, a source told. Homan wants something immediate and doesn't want to wait until next January. The mayor has emergency order power. So since he has emergency order power, let's see if Mayor Eric Adams is going to use his emergency order power to maybe declare state of emergency so that they can arrest the illegal migrants in New York City. But again, he did not, Pam Bondi did not sue. When she sued the collective in New York, she did not add Eric Adams. The border czar has, however, praised Adams in the past for the signaling interest in cooperation with the Trump administration's effort to root out illegal migrants with rap sheets and locate hundreds of thousands of unaccounted for migrant kids. He's all in on addressing public safety threats that are here illegally and helping me find these missing children, Holman's told WABC 770 AM, The Cats and Cosby Show. I'm hoping we come with an agreement where his officers will help my officers remove these public safety threats, especially the Trandanagra, which they call TDA, and other alien gangs that are wreaking havoc in New York, Holman said. He so hopes, let's hope Thursday night I head back to DC with a great agreement, are added, noting that he won't count his pennies until he has them. The meeting is slated to take place just hours after the DOJ ordered Manhattan federal prosecutors to drop the historic corruption case against the Big Apple mayor. Adams is charged with doing favors for Turkish diplomats in exchange for $123,000 worth of travel perks, bribes. The meetup was also being held off by lack of news that the feds clawed back more than 80 million in migrant funds directly from the city coffers, blindsiding local officials on Wednesday. This morning, our office learned that the federal government clawed back more than $80 million in FEMA grants applied for and awarded under the last administration, but not distributed until last week, Adams said. While we conduct an internal investigation into how this occurred, our office has already engaged with the White House about recouping these funds, and we requested an emergency meeting with FEMA to try and resolve this matter as quickly as possible. Well, I hate to tell it to you, but Kristi Noem is the one who clawed back that money. And it's a strong possibility that you all are not going to get that money back. So don't count on that money from the federal government. I just don't see that happening. So as we wait for President Trump to come in with his press conference, we are going through some news stories and seeing what is happening around the news that you might not have got a chance to catch up with. So that's what we're doing, is just following the news cycle, because it is, when you deal with press conferences, they never ever start on time. So that's just the way it is. And for those that normally follow, let's see. I want to let's see here, because I want to possibly show you all some other things that we are covering here that's coming up. But we will definitely be bringing in this stuff. And I do thank you all for being patient, because it's just the way it is sometimes. We have to wait for um oh, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. We have to wait for the press conference, and it is what it is, and we just have to definitely wait for it, unfortunately. So let's see. What I want to do now is yesterday, um the press secretary had a press conference. So let's watch a little of that until Trump um gets on his press conference, and let's bring that up, and we'll watch some of that because Trump is not ready. And this is the press conference from yesterday. So let's watch some of.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see all of you on this very newsy day, to say the least. I have a couple of updates for you this morning, or this afternoon. As you know, this morning, the president spoke to President Putin of Russia. They spoke at length, and the president released a statement following that conversation in great detail. I can also confirm that the president just recently got off the phone with President Zelensky of Ukraine. His truth is as follows. I just spoke to President Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive, totally unnecessary death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. I myself just spoke to the president about these calls, and he told me to tell all of you they were very good calls, they were very positive, and the administration is wholeheartedly committed to a peace deal to end once and for all the Russia-Ukraine war. More on that later. I'm sure you'll have more questions to ask. This week, the president to deliver on his promises to the American people. According to new polling that was released at the beginning of this week by CBS News, an overwhelming 70% of Americans said that President Trump is following through on what he pledged to do during his historic campaign. The poll also revealed that Americans see President Trump as a tough, energetic, focused, and effective leader fighting hard to improve their lives and our country. And yesterday, in particular, was a truly special day for the United States of America. Thanks to the great leadership of President Trump and the strong and tough leadership of President Trump, Mark Fogel, an American teacher detained by Russia, was returned to American soil and met with the president here at the White House last night. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the rest of President Trump's incredible national security team helped to negotiate the exchange that secured Mark Fogel's release. This event showed a good faith effort from Russia, and it's a sign, as I just said, that we're moving in the right direction to end this brutal. Malphine Fogel, Mark's 95-year-old mother, was understandably very worried that she would never see her son again after his arrest in 2021. Mrs. Fogel was actually slated to join President Trump on stage at the July 13th Butler, Pennsylvania rally to speak out for Mark. And then the infamous assassination attempt against President Trump took place. But that day, before the rally, President Trump promised Mark's mother that when he returned to the White House, he would bring her son home. God saved President Trump's life on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now Mark Fogel is back home safely with his family as a result. God is good. The president also continues to bring back common sense to our government. This week, he signed an EO to end the procurement and forced use of paper straws. Taxpayer dollars were wasted on these non-functional and massively unpopular products for no other reason than it made radical activists feel good about themselves. And on trade, President Trump continues to take bold action to protect America's critical steel and aluminum industries, much like he did first term. And the president signed proclamations to close existing loopholes and exemptions to restore a true 25% tariff on steel and elevate the tariff on aluminum to 25% as well. This administration believes these tariffs will protect our national security and put American workers first. And in the Oval Office yesterday with Elon Musk, President Trump took further action to make our federal government more efficient and effective. He signed an EO implementing the DOGE Workforce Optimization Initiative. Now, agency heads will coordinate and consult with DOGE to significantly shrink the size of the federal workforce and limit to essential positions only. The unaccountable bureaucracy will finally be reined in. On another important matter this morning, Senate Republicans continued to confirm President Trump's exceptionally qualified nominees, most recently Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who will be joining us later at the White House for her swearing-in ceremony. It's imperative that the remainder of the president's cabinet nominees are confirmed as quickly as possible. On another important matter this week, illegal alien criminals continue to be arrested and sent home as part of the ongoing mass deportation effort of the Trump administration. Just this week, 2 planes with 190 Venezuelan illegal aliens arrived in the Venezuelan capital from Fort Bliss, Texas. Here are some of the criminal illegal aliens who were arrested in the country this past week. ICE Atlanta arrested a citizen of Nigeria who had been convicted of money laundering. ICE San Antonio, the citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of assault. ICE Denver arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of aggravated assault. And ICE Houston arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been convicted of aggravated assault. Now, before I take questions, I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of law, and they have issued at least 12 injunctions in the past 14 days, often without any evidence or grounds. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts: 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted. So here in our new media seat today, we have Chris Pavlovski, an entrepreneur who has a strong passion for protecting freedom of speech. Chris started the video sharing platform Rumble in 2013 with a mission of protecting a free and open internet from censorship by big tech and governments around the globe. The platform has always been a place for independent creators to share their authentic opinions, and they have always included President Trump, in contrast to the way he was censored by other platforms in years past. Since its founding, Rumble has grown exponentially, recently marking 67 million monthly active users. It's a lot of users. If you're watching right now and interested in sitting in this seat, you can apply. WhiteHouse.gov's new media. With that, I will take your questions. And Chris, why don't you kick us off on this very busy?
Okay, should Save News apply for one of those seats? Y'all tell me in the comments. Let me know.
Busy news day.
Carolyn, thank you very much to you and President Trump. It's an honor.
For those that's just coming in, we are waiting for President Trump for his press conference. One thing about it is when you're waiting on these press conferences, it takes a while. They never sometimes start on time. And that is just the way it is. We start on time when they say they're going to start. So that's just how it is. So we're reading through news stories. And right now what we're watching is yesterday's press conference with Press Secretary Karine Levitt. So she'll be catching. Some things have changed because, as we know, this is a fast-moving administration. When President Trump come on, if it's in the middle of what I'll do is I will, stop this video and of course bring up President Trump. But just know that this is how this works with most of this. Just have a banner up. At least I'm sitting here talking.
Honor to be sitting here in the new media seat for the White House briefing and to be able to demonstrate why freedom of expression is so important. Rumble was the victim of censorship at the hands of multiple foreign governments. It's clear there are still many countries who oppose free speech and even target American companies. Can you describe what the administration will do to protect U.S. interests and values worldwide?
Sure. Well, thanks for the very important question. And I think that free speech and ending censorship, both here at home and also abroad, is an important part of President Trump's agenda. I think first, President Trump has led by example on this front as the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, with his show of access and transparency on a daily basis. The president takes questions from all of you almost every single day, reveals what he's thinking and feeling, and I think that serves as a great example to the rest of the world. As for tangible actions that the president has signed, he did sign an executive order, I believe on day one, certainly within the first week of this administration, to restore free speech and stop government-sponsored censorship here at home. And the EO made it very clear that federal employees are not allowed to engage in any activity that would infringe upon the American people's right of free expression. So I think the president has led only on this. And I would just add, this is part of the reason we have a new media seat, to invite new voices into this room. Again, we're going to need to expand this room because so many people are interested, and we're very excited about that. It's a privilege to cover this White House, but we want all voices to be heard. So thanks for being us with here, Chris, and I hope you enjoy the briefing. Sure. Jordan.
Thanks, Caroline. Data out this morning showed that consumer prices were up across a variety of goods, and just before that report, though, President Trump called for lower interest rates. The Fed said it's holding rates steady to try and tamp down further inflation. So how would lowering rates help keep inflation in check American people?
Sure. Well, first of all, on the inflation point, we did receive those numbers, and they were worse than expected, which tells us that the Biden administration indeed left us with a mess to deal with. It's far worse than I think anybody anticipated, because unfortunately the previous administration was not transparent in where the economy truly was. We know people at this very podium told the American people that inflation was transitory and that it would go away. That was not the case. And now the last report of the Biden administration, as revealed today, shows that inflation is still about 4.5% higher over the past 3 months. This is an indictment on the Biden administration's mismanagement of the inflation crisis and their lack of transparency in addressing it. As for tackling inflation and interest rates, the president has made his position on this very clear. He wants interest rates to be lower. He wants inflation to believe that the whole of government economic approach that this administration is taking will result in lower inflation. I have said that from this podium many times. The president had record rates and inflation rates in his first term. He believes that the economy can handle it and withstand it. And we're doing a lot to tackle the inflation effort on this front. It's a whole of government economic approach, and I've talked about what we're doing to tackle inflation quite a few times from this podium.
What about the on reciprocal tariffs? That's going to come before Prime Minister Modi's visit tomorrow.
I do believe it will come before the Prime Minister's visit tomorrow, and I will let the president discuss the details on the reciprocal tariff front. But this is something he believes strongly in. And it's very simple logic as to why the president wants to impose reciprocal tariffs. It's the golden rule, which we all learned when we were growing up in school. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And far too many nations around this world have been ripping off the United States of America for far too long. And that's why the president believes this will be a great policy that will benefit American workers and improve our national security. JJ.
On Doge and the fraud claims, Elon Musk in the Oval yesterday gave us some information on that. We're just wondering if there's some proof, evidence. Is the White House willing to share fraud claims, or can Elon Musk come to the briefing room and share material evidence of what he's talking about?
Sure, I would love for Elon Musk to come to the briefing room. That's why we had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans home. But I'd say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to Doge. President Trump and even incredibly transparent on what Doge is doing. There is an X account with the Doge handle. They are tweeting out what they are doing on a daily basis. They have a website where they are posting the receipts of the contracts that they are reviewing and the payments that they have stopped from going out the door. The secretaries of our departments have stopped from going out the door. And I would also say that before Musk making our government efficient and accountable, it was some unnamed bureaucrat that none of you knew. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's also now one of the most highly scrutinized men in the world alongside President Trump because of what he's doing and the access that he is allowing. So there's great transparency. As for the actual receipts, we are happy to provide them, and I actually brought some today because all of you know I love to bring the receipts. We have contracts upon contracts that we can send and provide this information to you. Let me be very clear. We're not trying to hide anything. We have been transparent and we will continue to be. These are screenshots of contracts that Doge found across our government. This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a $3.4 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that Doge identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one. 57 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing. These are the line items across the federal government that Doge is identifying daily. They're moving very fast. There's a lot of paper that we can show you, but we're happy to do it. This administration has been more than transparent about what Doge is doing. And here's one of their tweets that they posted about the mine. I believe this is in Pennsylvania, where the federal employee retirement system is being processed. Did anybody know this was even happening in our country before Elon Musk talked about it in the Oval Office yesterday? A lot of Americans didn't. So we are providing transparency and accessibility on a daily basis when it comes to Doge. And I also have a Doge daily report, if anybody would like it, on all of the things that they are identifying and finding. We're happy to provide this information to you. We're talking about it every single day.
Are all those things you just mentioned fraud, or are they waste, or are they just contrary to the president's policies?
I would argue that all of these things are fraudulent, they are wasteful, and they are an abuse of the American taxpayer's dollar. This is not what the government should be spending money on. It's contrary to the president's priorities and agenda. And again, we can continue to provide you the receipts for all of the fraud, waste, and abuse. And if anybody in here wants to argue that the federal government is not fraudulent in some capacity, be my guest, because I think the American people watching at home would beg to differ.
Caroline.
Mary.
Hey, more on the judges. Does the White House believe the courts have the authority to issue these nationwide injunctions?
We believe that the injunctions that have been issued by these judges have no basis in the law and have no grounds. And we will, again, as the president said very clearly yesterday, comply with these orders. But it is the administration's position that we will also ultimately be vindicated. And the president's executive actions that he took were completely within the law. They were constitutional. And we look forward to the day where he can continue to implement his agenda. And I would just add, it's our view that this is the continuation of the weaponization of justice that we have seen against President Trump. Fought it for 2 years on the campaign trail. Stop him now. Brian.
Yes. I want to go back to Doge just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments to Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some of this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that Doge is identifying on a daily basis. Elon Musk also talked about yesterday Social Security payments that are going out the door for people who are no longer with us, unfortunately. I would say that is certainly fraud. There's also a lot of contracts they've identified that, just as a hypothetical example, are $1 million, but only 500,000 went out the door. So where's the rest of that cash? And so that's the thing. Those are the things that DOGE is working on every single day. And I would just remind everybody in this room, this is what President Trump campaigned on doing. He's delivering on a promise that 77 million people elected him to do. James.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Two foreign policy questions, if I may.
Sure.
First, the statement that was released after this morning's phone calls identified Mr. Witkoff as the special envoy who will be part of the delegation that undertakes to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war. I had thought that individual was General. Clear that up.
Vladimir Putin said that he has asked Secretary of State Rubio, the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, our national security advisor here at the White House, Michael Watts, and Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations. As for General Kellogg, he remains a critical part of this team in this effort. He's played a tremendous role in getting the negotiations to this point, and he's very much still part of the Trump administration.
The other side is Iran. I took note of President Trump's comments in his Super Bowl interview with our colleague Bret Baier to the effect that he wants to do a deal with Iran. However, that interview appeared after the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had already ruled out any additional negotiations with the United States. So kind of a two-part question. A, what gives the president any confidence that Iran will come to the table? And B, more fundamentally, why is the president interested in doing a deal with Iran instead of, and perhaps short of U.S. military intervention, to try and hasten the end of what many of his own supporters regard as an evil regime?
Well, the president has made it very clear that he will never allow Iran to have nuclear capabilities. That is a red line that he has drawn, and he will not allow that to happen. But you asked why President Trump wants to make a deal. I would remind you, he's the master of the art of the deal. He is America's deal maker in chief. He leads from a position of securing peace through strength. And I think time and time again already, in just 4 weeks, we have seen the president being able to negotiate successful deals with our partners, our adversaries all around this world. You know, the release of Mark Fogel just last night is something that I think speaks to the president's deal-making ability. This is something that the Biden administration allegedly tried to do for 3.5 years. I think you all should go back and ask some of those Biden administration officials what they even tried to do and why weren't they successful, because for 3.5 years, Mark Fogel sat in a prison, and it took President Trump 3 weeks to get him back on American soil. There's nobody better at making deals than Donald Trump. Phil Wegman.
Thank you. Two foreign policy questions. Ukrainian President Zelensky has said after the war that he wants NATO membership or nuclear weapons. We heard Defense Secretary Hegseth say that NATO membership was unrealistic. What's the president's view on the other option, on a nuclear Ukraine?
I have not talked to President Trump about Ukraine's NATO membership or their nuclear capabilities. I would leave it to him to discuss, but I will tell you again that Secretary Rubio and also the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will be meeting directly with President Zelensky in Munich on Friday, and I'm sure they will provide a readout of that conversation and that discussion.
And then the second question, given that this administration has called on Europe to take more responsibility for their own defense, I'm wondering, will the EU or any other European than Ukraine be involved in these peace talks?
I don't have any European nations who are involved currently to read out for you. Certainly, the president has employed a very strong team or deployed a very strong team to continue these negotiations. And the fact that he was on the phone with both President Putin and President Zelensky today shows that he's very much involved in this effort as well.
And then just a follow-up, I guess.
Sure.
Should we expect the president to negotiate in person with Zelensky and Putin?
I don't have anything to read out on that for you today. Maggie, good to see you.
Thanks for taking the question. You talked about the transparency with Doge and Elon Musk's availability today. There is a conflict of interest law in place that says that people who have personal interests can't interact with government entities that could touch on those. Has President Trump signed a waiver for Elon Musk? Does such a thing exist? If it does, will you guys release it in the interest of transparency that he's committed to?
I have not seen the law that you are referring to. What I can tell you is that Elon Musk, as I've confirmed before, is a special government employee. He is filing the proper financial disclosure, and he is complying with all applicable federal laws. As you also heard, Elon address this directly yesterday in the alleged conflict of interest, and he said everything he's doing is very public, and if you all perceive a conflict of interest, you're welcome to bring that up. And as the president said, if he feels like Elon is engaging in something that's a conflict of interest, he will tell Elon not to do that. And Elon also said yesterday that before he moves forward with anything, he consults of the United States. So we're very confident with the ethics and the guardrails that have been put in place here. Caitlin.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a few things for you, but on the commitment by President Trump, he said that he and President Putin agreed to visit each other's respective nations. Are there any preconditions that President Trump has that President Putin must do before he goes and meets with him, withdrawing some forces, withdrawing all forces, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but I was just talking with the president in our national.
For those that's just coming in, I just want to reiterate that the press conference is coming with President Trump. But as president of the United States, these press conferences do not always start on time. We are watching the press conference from yesterday. When Trump comes on, we will immediately break into this or whatever we're looking at. We're covering news stories so we can bring the press conference to you live and immediately when President Trump comes on.
Security team, I wasn't made aware conditions, but if they exist, I'm happy to.
And on the president himself, he styles himself as this master negotiator. He is now deploying these negotiations, saying that they start immediately. We did hear from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, though, today saying that NATO membership is not realistic for Ukraine, and neither is returning to pre-2014 borders. Aren't they giving away bargaining chips before these negotiations have even started?
Again, I haven't talked to the president about Ukraine's NATO membership, and appointed several individuals to negotiate on his behalf. He's directly involved in these negotiations as well. And I'm sure if you ask him that question in the near future, when you're able to, he'll give you an answer. I just don't want to get ahead of him on it.
And final thing for you, which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe should? How does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being put in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name. Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. The prisoner exchange with Russia coming at the same time as the president is now announcing negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. The timing of that is hard to ignore. Was Ukraine discussed as part of this prisoner swap?
I was not involved in those discussions, so I can't comment on whether that came up or not. What I can say is that this was the United States of America and for the rest of the world. As you know, we have confirmed that the Russian who will be returning home very soon, Alexander Vinnik, was a non-violent crypto criminal, and as part of this exchange, he has forfeited more than $100 million that he obtained in that illegal crime. And in exchange, of course, we got Mark Vogel, who is a middle school teacher who kissed the American soil, but kissed the ground last night when he returned to the United States of America. It was a great deal and a great day for our country, and I think everybody, regardless of political affiliation, agrees with that.
And was Russia made aware ahead of time of the parameters that the administration and Secretary Hegseth was going to be announcing today?
The NATO perimeters?
Yes.
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Secretary Hegseth and the Defense Department on that, since he announced them. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Just to be clear, so when we're listening for a shifting position on U.S. policy, should we only listen to the president and maybe not the Secretary of Defense? Because what he outlined today would represent a shift in U.S. policy.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I speak for the President of the United States behind this podium, and I will let him discuss that.
More about the next hostage releases. I understand another American's coming out today.
Sure. I'm glad you asked. It speaks to President Trump's deal-making ability, and we can confirm the safe release of one American and two individuals from Belarus, one of whom worked for Radio Liberty. Out of respect for the privacy of these individuals, their request, we have no further details to announce on their identity. Confirm that one American was released today, and it's a remarkable victory on the heels of Mark Vogel returning to America last night.
Anything on might be releasing in exchange?
I don't have details on that at this moment. I don't have details on that at this moment. I do know that these three individuals have been released and are on their way home to their respective countries.
Caroline, thank you so much. Can you explain how President Trump envisions the war in Russia and Ukraine coming to an end? Does he expect Ukraine to hand over all the territory in question?
Again, these negotiations are ongoing. I will allow the president to divulge any red lines that he may set, but I think as deals in the past have come to fruition, the president has proven one of the that made negotiator is not revealing what he's anticipating from both sides, but he is at the forefront of these negotiations in addition to the very qualified individuals who he's tasked with speaking to both President Putin and President Zelensky.
And speaking of deals, a meeting with the President of the United States offers any foreign leader credibility. Was it part of the prisoner swap with Vogel that President Trump agreed to meet with Putin?
Again, I was already asked this question. I said I was not made aware of that, but we can certainly get you an answer on that. I'll check in with the NSC. Sure, Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. It's clear that this administration is dedicated to both truth and transparency. We know that with DOJ, but we also know that because this administration recently announced it's going to declassify the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr., JFK, and RFK. I'm wondering, is it likely that we're going to see more information regarding the assassination attempts on the president's life while he was on the campaign trail?
In regards to the assassination of the individuals you mentioned, President Trump signed that executive order directing the respective agencies to do it. I know that that process continues and is ongoing. He's committed to transparency and the declassification of these very important files that I think many Americans are not only interested in learning about, but also have the right to know about. As for the two heinous assassination attempts on the president's life, he's spoken to this publicly. I've spoken to him about it privately, and as he publicly view, he feels he has a right to know about further information about the individuals who tried to kill him, tried to take his life. And so if and when we get that information, I'll leave it up to the president to decide whether or not he would like to reveal it. But I believe in the effort of transparency that we've seen consistently from this president, he certainly will. Daniel.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask you about the $59 million that FEMA sent to New York City migrant hotels. Secretary Kristi Noem just put out a statement saying that she clawed back the full FEMA activists unilaterally gave to NYC migrant hotels. She wrote, "Mark my words, there will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and safety of the American people." What does the response of the Trump administration send to any federal bureaucrats that are thinking about obstructing the president's agenda?
They will be held accountable. The president is signing executive orders daily, and he expects all officials across the administration, regardless if they are a political appointee or if they are a career bureaucrat, to adhere to the will of the American people and the 77 million Americans who re-elected President Trump. He is here for a reason, and he is focused every day on implementing his administration's goals and sending $59 million to a migrant hotel to house illegal immigrants when there are still people in North California who have not received FEMA funding is not something that this administration is going to tolerate. Deanna.
Thank you so much.
Caroline, one on New York and one on Russia. On New York City Comptroller Brad Lander is accusing Doge of clawing back $80 million that was intended for New York City FEMA funding. Wondering if you've heard about that figure, if that figure is accurate, and why that money was taken back.
I have not heard about that figure. Doge is moving very quickly, but I can get the receipts and gladly send them to you. I know that story is likely of great interest to the New York Post.
And then one on
John.
Russia, please.
Sure.
Is President Trump waiting for a kind of signal or an action from Putin to go to Russia? And would he be willing to go to you too?
I don't have any decisions to make on the president's potential visit to Russia or any in-person meeting at this time. John.
Caroline, two questions, one on foreign policy, one on domestic policy. Following up on the president's call that he had with President Putin, does the president view Russia, does he view President Putin as an ally, as a partner, as a competitor, or as an adversary?
I believe this nation views Putin and Russia as a great competitor in the region, at times an adversary, but as the president has said as well, he enjoys having good diplomatic relationships with leaders around the world, finding that common ground, also calling them out when they are wrong, and leading from a position of peace through strength. That's the president's greatest strength, and we've seen that again, time and time again.
And then, as you pointed out in your statement regarding the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard, there was one Republican who voted against the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard. It was Senator Mitch McConnell. Similarly, how does the administration view Senator McConnell? Can he be a partner in the president's legislative agenda? Are you disappointed that he voted against not only Tulsi Gabbard, but also Pete Hegseth to be the defense secretary?
I think we're greatly disappointed in any Republican who chooses willfully to vote against the president's exceptionally qualified cabinet nominees and picks to lead his America First administration. Not a single Democrat swayed from voting against President Biden's nominees, and we know how many of them turned out. They turned out to be atrocious at their jobs, leaving America much worse than they were when they took the oath of office. And so I've said it repeatedly from this podium. I addressed it at the beginning of my remarks. We expect all Republicans to vote to stay tough and strong for President Trump's nominees, so we can get to work and continue to work very hard to implement this president's agenda. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. On South Korea is currently in a chaotic situation. How does the President Trump react to the current chaotic situation in South Korea? Secondly, if South Korea needs help from the United States, what role do you think the U.S. will play?
Sure. I haven't spoken to the president about the ongoing situation in South Korea. I would defer you to his previous statements. And I can also see if I can get you something new from the National Security Council, who I'm very confident the officials that focus on South Korea are on this. I just haven't spoken to them about it, but I'm happy to provide that for you. Yes.
Thank you, Caroline. Does Elon Musk have power of the president?
Absolutely not.
Right.
That's a ridiculous question.
I asked that question because, the Democrats have been hurling insults at Elon Musk, hurling attacks, calling him President Musk. Most recently, Jamie Raskin, the congressman, took it a step further, calling for Musk's impeachment, saying that he somehow usurped the power of the presidency. What's your response?
It's utterly ridiculous. Elon Musk addressed this in the Oval Office yesterday. The president addressed it as well. Elon Musk is serving as the president, just like everybody else on this team. He takes directives directly from the president of the United States. And I think some of the comments that you referred to are nothing but attempt from the media and from Democrats to try to sow division in this White House. We saw them do it in the first term. We're not going to let them do it in the second term. This is a unified team who is working at the pleasure of the president to do what's right for the American people. I have one more quick housekeeping note before I leave you all today. The president wanted me to share with all of you that he had a wonderful meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan yesterday. They discussed many things, including the Gaza Strip and its future at great length. The King would much prefer that the Palestinians place with the additional land to be used for new development, which would greatly create jobs at levels never seen before. But the president feels it would be much better and more majestic if these Palestinians could be moved to safer areas. I would just add to that the president remains wholeheartedly committed to seeing peace in the Middle East, and our Arab partners in the region have been tasked with coming up with a peace plan to present to the president. That is ongoing. King Abdullah mentioned that yesterday. He also committed to accepting 2,000 sick children from the Gaza Strip, which the president called a beautiful gesture. So the administration continues to work with our Arab partners in the region. We stand closely with our ally Israel. And the president has this big, new, bold idea to secure peace in the Middle East, and he is not going to waver from that. And we look forward to seeing that goal of this administration achieved as well. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you very soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. What we're doing is we're bringing in the news. When you deal with presidents, you know that everything, press conferences do not start on time. We are bringing you some other information that has happened across the news as we wait for President Trump to bring his receipts. There's a lot of things on his agenda today. Irrespective of what we're playing or what's on today, we will break in as President Trump comes in. So this is President Trump greeting Mark Fogel, who was released from Russia as a prisoner. So let's watch this. This was yesterday, last night.
Step. And salute.
Thank you very much. So beautiful. Look at that. Be careful. It could be a little bit slippery. You don't want to slip it. Okay, he's careful. Yeah, that would be it. That would be very somebody else very special. Very special. Very fair. Very, very fair.
Was it a Russian prisoner?
We're going to announce it tomorrow. Very fair.
And why did you not use the government plane to go pick up Wilker?
Save the government money.
How much?
A lot. We save the government a lot of money.
Are you concerned about safety? If Russia passed the plane?
Mr. President, Mark Fogel. He looks good.
It's very difficult to articulate how proud I am of you and how proud I am of what you've done and came back to my country. And it's the most humbling thing. I love it. She's a bit in shock, but I think she's lovely. If I win, we're going to do it. Well, I'm in total awe, and my thanks is for you and your administration and these amazing people that have brought me home, and I just will spend the rest of my life in debt to you and the country, and I'm so excited. So good. Thank you very much. Some of our great people, speaker. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mark. Senator. Christmas cards. And you know what? I got about 10 cards, and yours was one of them.
That's right. Oh, wow, that's very nice.
My lawyer snuck it.
I know. I asked them how they got it in there.
Yes, they
snuck
said
it in.
that. Hello.
Congressman?
Mark Fogel. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Mike, this is your coat, right? Yeah.
And it is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Squirrel Hill.
Hey, good to see you.
No. I had a Steeler hat on when I got off the plane. And I don't know where it is, but you know, it's great to meet another Pittsburgh.
Your mom came to our house.
She told me that. And I just talked to Vicky, and I know she was there, and I mean, I'm a proud Pittsburgher.
Smart guy, Russian call.
It's been an absolute star for me and my family, and again, you know, like I said, for me to articulate all this in this particular time after what I've been through, and it's not the 3.5 years, but the last 6 days has been.
What, because you weren't sure?
I don't know. They came and pulled me out, and I just had a mask on. I could see where I was going, and they were moving me. And there was a point, I think it was today. I can't remember what day it is, but they brought me my clothes.
You look well.
That's fantastic.
Let's get you out of the cold.
I'm not one bit of cold. I came from Russia. And you know what? Of the 10 letters, I got one from you as well. And I had that in a scrapbook I was keeping, and they took that scrapbook from me today, and I want it back. I want those journals back and that scrapbook. Your picture was in it, and as they were, you know, giving me the shakedown, we're looking through it, and I have the picture of you and my mom.
Oh, that's good.
And you should have seen these guys. Well, their eyes lit up like in a like, who's this? I said, that's my mother.
He's got some. Come on. We'll get you. Be careful.
Pleasure to meet you.
Mark, I want to introduce you to somebody. Here is John Radcliffe.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Personally negotiated.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart, from every ounce of my energies. I thank you, and I will for the rest of my life. Thank you so much. Mr. Wolf, and the coat. I felt so bad.
Ow, stop it. Say more. It's so cold in Russia. Yeah, yeah. It's a little cold. You got it cold outside, yeah. It was.
Everybody knows Mark. He's become a very famous guy. He's a very happy guy tonight, so it's just a real honor, an honor to have you at the White House.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. The senators and representatives that passed legislation in my honor to get me home are the heroes. I am in awe of what they all did. My family has been a force. I think my 95-year-old mother is probably the most dynamic 95-year-old on earth right now. And I am so indebted to so many people. I think I remember a Churchill quote that he said when the RAF was fighting the Luftwaffe, and he said that never have so many owed so much to so few. And I put myself, fortunately and unfortunately, into that category, and I said, never has one owed so much to so many. That this superorganism of people that came to my support and the love that I was given sustained me for 3.5 years in a prison, that had me in hospitals for more than 100 days. I was given more than 4 months in that time. And knowing I had the support of my fellow Pennsylvanians, my family, my friends, it was so overwhelming that it brought me to my knees and it brought me to tears, but it was my energy, it was my being that kept me going that whole time, and I will forever be indebted to President Trump, to Steve over there. What a dynamic man this guy is. When I met him, the energy, the can-do attitude just exudes from his body. And when he smiled at me and introduced me and I got the feel for what has happened, you know, it's not just me, it's everybody. And Secretary Rubio, who met my son a while back, I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world.
We're going to show you the Lincoln bedroom. It's a very special place. Appropriate for tonight. Very appropriate.
And thank you all. And I love our country. And I'm so happy to be back here. And I wish I could articulate it better.
You've done beautifully, and he's got a great mother. And when I saw the mother at a rally, she said, if you win, will you get my son out? And I promised. She's 95 years old. And I said, we'll get him out. And we got him out pretty quickly.
She told me that exact words.
I remember.
And,
she made quite an impression.
And you also did.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe of what you've done. And your team.
It's great to have you back.
Oh.
Gonna have a great life. Yes.
President, did you speak directly to President Putin about?
Well, I don't want to say that. I just want to say that I appreciate very much what they did in letting Mark go home. And I appreciate Steve Witkoff, the job he did, and Marco behind the scenes was unbelievable. And so many of these people were unbelievable. They represent him. They're from his area. And we just wanted to get him back home. I had to get him back home because I would have had big trouble with his mother. And we're going to do the Lincoln bedroom, which nobody gets to see, and it's very special. Do you want to see it?
I would love to. And I also should make mention that President Putin was very generous and statesmanlike in granting me a pardon. I mean,
what were the terms of this deal, Mr. President?
Very fair, very, very fair, very reasonable. Not like deals you've seen over the years. They were very fair. And I think that's going to lead, and somebody else is being released tomorrow that you will know of. But we wanted to get this done, very important. And Steve wanted to actually fly over and get Mark and get him home properly, because it could be a pretty tough trip.
So is this the beginning of a deal, sir? Is this the start?
I think there's goodwill in terms of the war. You know, 1.5 million soldiers, young people have been killed.
I've met many of them.
Yeah, and it's a terrible thing going on. So we want to get that done. I think this could be the important element. You could be a big part of it, actually, because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over with Ukraine. And we appreciate President Putin's what he did. He was able to pull it off for you, right? He was able to pull it off. We think, and you're here, and you're here, so it was great. We'll tell you a little bit more tomorrow, but I think we've made great progress on the war also. Getting the war, I want to get the war ended. That war should not have been. It would have never happened if I was president. It would not have happened. And it did happen. And now you have all blown up cities and dead people. So many dead people should have never, ever happened. And you could be a big catalyst for just this evening. It's a very important evening for ending that war. And I think they all want to see it ended.
Does that mean you gave
How does it change your perspective on Putin and your attitude?
Well, I don't want to get into that. I only can say this. We got a man home whose mother and family wanted him, whose state wanted him. He's become a big symbol. And it's an honor to have played a small role in that. And I want to tell you, these people, they all played a role. And we got him home. He's healthy. It looks good, actually. To me, you look damn good, I'll tell you that.
I think when expectations are low, maybe that helps a little bit.
When you go plunk, right?
Can you tell us about the conditions that you were in, sir?
I think I need a little bit of time to sort of digest all of that. There were times when it was extremely trying. There were times when I could manage it, but I think I need some more time to, process it.
It wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy.
Every second, every minute, every day had a challenge.
But you're in good shape. I mean, compare that to what we saw 2 days ago come home. They were very, very ill. Those people are very ill. They were treated really badly.
Mr. President, your predecessor left you almost $4 billion in unused aid for Ukraine. Are you going to use those money? Are you going to send weapons to Ukraine?
Should have had this gentleman out a long time ago. We did it in 2.5 weeks. He had 4 years to do it. He should have had Mark out a lot earlier. It's a shame.
It was very
a war to start off with. Should have never had that war. Would have never happened if I was president. But he should have had him back 3.5 years ago. So it was too bad, but he didn't do it. But we did it. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Come on.
Mr. President, are reciprocal tariffs still coming tomorrow, or are you waiting until you meet with Modi?
We'll see what happens.
Have you spoken with President Xi?
Okay, everybody. We are awaiting President Trump's live coverage, press conference. We know when residents of the United States that things happen and we just have to wait on him. So we're just pulling up some articles and some different things that you might have missed. This is the swearing in of Tulsi Gabbard that we're going to play, but irrespective of what we're playing, when President Trump goes live with his press conference, we'll break in coverage.
Delighted to swear in ex-director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Most of you know Tulsi. She's a fantastic woman. Tulsi, I want to just congratulate you, your husband, Abraham, your sister, and all of your friends. A lot of friends here. You have a lot of friends, and they were all fighting for you. It worked out very well. Tulsi Gabbard's an American of extraordinary courage and exceptional patriotism. She's devoted her entire life to service, and I've watched her for years on different shows and everything. I said, she's a woman of great common sense, and, we like the common sense. It's a word that's being used a lot. I think we started it in terms of politics, but it's a word that's used a lot. It's usually pretty effective, too, and you really are. I've watched you, even Larry King. You're very young. I don't know how you were Larry King, but you're very young. But you were, and you always had the situation covered properly. At 21 years old, Tulsi became the youngest woman ever elected to the Hawaii State Legislature. After 9/11, she joined the Hawaii Army National Guard and deployed abroad 3 times, and highly respected by everybody. So many people writing in letters saying she was so exceptional. And then she continues to serve as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, and Tulsi also served 4 terms in the United States House of Representatives, where she was a member of the House Armed Services Committee. She is a former vice chair of the National Democratic Party. Can you believe that? And here she is. That's very nice. A few of them. But she was never a Democrat. She was, at heart, she was a Republican. I watched her. and was a 2020 candidate for President of the United States. It's not easy, right? It's not so easy. People think it's easy. It's not easy. Throughout her service, Tulsi has always distinguished herself as a leader of the highest caliber. She's earned the respect and admiration and love of Americans on both sides of the aisle as her profound commitment to the value keep us free, and she really does have those values as much as anybody. In recent years, Tulsi has been a courageous and often lonely voice speaking out against radical left's attacks on free speech and the dangers of an unelected deep state. And I have to say, she was very, very strong for me when I was going through all of the fake news and all of the problems that we had with some very sick people. She was always out there. Before I really knew her as well, she was out there defending me, so I appreciated that, Tulsi. But the threat of a warmongering military-industrial complex and the weaponization of government and governmental people that go out and persecute, they like to persecute people that are innocent. Tulsi herself became a target of that weaponization when she was outrageously placed on a suspected terrorist watch list by the Biden regime. It's a very evil regime after criticizing their appalling abuses of power. And I'm confident that as director of the National Intelligence, Tulsi will work tirelessly to keep America safe. And she's been doing that her entire career. I think it's going to be a very natural day. Walk in, it's just have to keep the way you are, just stay the way you are. She'll be clear-eyed and she'll be focused on the threat of radical Islamic terrorism and lots of other threats too, threats from within, and give no quarter to America's foreign enemies. At the same time, I'm entrusting Tulsi with the responsibility of overseeing urgently needed reforms to the U.S. intelligence community to protect the rights and the civil liberties of all Americans. She'll provide the American people with transparency, eliminate corruption, shrink the bloated bureaucracy, and restore honesty, integrity, and trust to the national security state. There's only one thing I can say, that there's nobody like her for this job. This was a very easy one for me. She was recommended by some of the top people in that world. It's a little world, you know. It's a little smart world. It sometimes can be an evil world when the wrong people are there, but we have the right one. She's had so many great recommendations. I would say Pam was right up there with her, Pam Bondi. She had a lot. I know her a little bit better, and you're doing a fantastic job after about 3 or 4 days, right? You've had a lot of experience, but you've never seen anything like this. But you're going to do fantastic as the Attorney General, fantastic. So thank you and congratulations. We did this with Pam a few days ago, and this is again my honor. So congratulations to Tulsi, and I think Pam is going to administer the oath, and when she does that, I'll sign your new certificate. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, we're going to pause this right now because we have some breaking news information. Let me share on my screen here. We have some news that's breaking as we put this on. This is Truth Social. President Trump has just tweeted out on trade. I have decided to, I want to make sure it's up there. Okay. On trade, I have decided for purposes of fairness that I will charge a reciprocal tariff, meaning whatever countries charge the United States of America, we will charge them, no more, no less. Now that is huge because in some cases, some countries on some items are charging us up to 200 and something % tariffs. Wow. For the purposes of this United States policy, we will countries that use the VAT system, which is far more punitive than a tariff. To be similar to that of the tariff, sending merchandise, product, or anything by any other name other through another country for purposes of unfairly harming America, we will not accept. In addition, We will make provisions for subsidiaries provided by countries in order to take economic advantage of the United States. Likewise, provisions will be made for non-monetary tariffs and trade barriers that some countries charge in order to keep our products out of their domain, or if they do not let the U.S. business operate. We will be able to articulately determine the cost of these non-monetary trade barriers. It is fair to all. No country can complain, and in some cases, if the country feels that the United States would be getting too high a tariff, all they have to do is to reduce or terminate their tariff against us. There are no tariffs if you manufacture and build your product in the United States. So let me say this to businesses right quick. This is the gem for businesses, new businesses to get contracts. You know, make it in the United States. That's going to be key. For many years, the U.S. have wow, this is breaking news, and it has just come across on Truth Social that President Trump had just put this information out. This is huge about the reciprocal tariffs. So anyway, this is huge news, huge news. So that is his Truth Social post that he just posted. So we're going to get back to this. Wanted to let you know that evidently he must have been in a trade and tariff meeting, because he just put this on Truth Social. And as soon as he comes out and give his press conference, we will break in on, regardless of what we're watching on Save News. So let's get back to this right here and what we're watching, which is President Trump's ceremony where he is, Gabbard is being sworn in as the Director of National Intelligence. Again, we will break in whatever our coverage is when President Trump go live.
Please place your left hand on the Constitution and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I, Tulsi Gabbard, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemy and domestic.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation. And that I will well and faithfully.
That I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
Discharge.
Okay, everybody, this is our live press conference coming in. Let's see.
And we don't have to worry about you charging too much or too little. But traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is a they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes because the fact that India, the tax was so high, the tariff was so high, and Harley was forced to build, I guess they built, I don't know, that was, but I think they built a factory in India in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors, that includes everything. If you build, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
What should consumers expect? Going to go up short-term,
Well,
long-term?
not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily, but I'll tell you what will go up is jobs. The jobs will go up tremendously. We're going to have great jobs for everybody. This is something that should have been done many years ago. China did it. I mean, China did it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. If you manufactured a car, you couldn't send it into China. The tariff was so high. So everybody went and they built in China. It was no big secret. So we're going to see, but it's going to mean tremendous amounts of jobs. And ultimately, prices will stay the same, go down. But we're going to have a very dynamic country.
But if prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs, who do you think voters should hold?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up, and prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country, and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration. The last administration hated our farmers, like at a level that I've never seen before. I think our farmers are going to be helped. Jobs are going to be helped, but our farmers are going to help. Our manufacturers are going to be helped. And again, if somebody wants to come in, including the car companies, if they want to come in and build car plants, they'll do it without tariffs. And therefore, prices won't go up. There could be short-term disturbance, but long-term, it's gonna make our country.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No, you said that. I didn't say that.
Well, if the prices go up.
Let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen other than we know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that the prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
Mr. President, can you explain the timeline here, sir? There's a period of time for a review, a report, 180 days. What's the earliest date that you think tariffs will actually be implemented and executed?
Well, I would say maybe I'll ask Howard to answer that because he's going to be the one that's implementing. What do you think?
Our studies should be all complete by April 1st. So we'll hand the president the opportunity to start on April 2nd if he wants. So I think we'll be ready to go
Pretty
on
close.
April 1st, and we'll hand it to the president, and he'll make decisions. But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up, and our costs are going down. Remember, it's a two-way street. That's why it's called reciprocal.
Have you spoken to any American CEOs directly about this? Are they calling you,
I've
asking for
spoken to
exemptions,
many,
for
and
example?
many love it. And they say this is going to be the thing that makes our country really prosperous again. And this is going to be what goes down the thirds in debt and all the other things. And this is going to be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day and in a very positive way for place.
Mr. President, you've talked to us.
They charge lots of fees, and they're doing something else. European Union's been very tough on our companies. They sued Apple, they sued Google, they sued Facebook, they sued many other companies, and they're American companies, and the kind of numbers are staggering. And the court system over there is not very good to our companies. If you know that Apple had to pay, I think, $16 billion in a penalty. A court case that was really shocking because most people thought they would have won that court case, people that watched it. So they've been very tough. Airlines have called me up and they said, could you help us with Europe because they're charging us so many different fees. I got a call from the head of American, United, and other airlines saying every time we land a plane, we get killed by the European Union. And so They haven't been treated. We think the European Union is wonderful. We all love Europe, love the countries in Europe. But European Union has been absolutely brutal on trade. Canada has been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada is going to have to start paying up. And Canada's been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost. They think we're going to protect them with our military, which is unfair. So Canada is going to be a very interesting situation because we just don't need their product, and yet they survive off the fact that we do 95% of what they do. And Canada is just absolutely, I say it, and sometimes people smile, and sometimes they say, great idea. Canada, their taxes would come down greatly. Their security would go up greatly. Amazing. Europe, the countries in Europe, but European Union has been absolutely brutal on trade. Canada has been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada is going to have to start paying up. And Canada has been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost. They think we're going to, protect them with our military, which is unfair. So Canada is going to be a very interesting situation because, we just don't need their product, and yet they survive off the fact. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and people are in danger. This is a different world today. It's a different world. They need our protection.
You
Yes.
just mentioned Elon Musk and the efforts that he's undertaking with your authority. You granted him new authority this week. Will he secure any new government contracts while he is working on DOGE?
No, not if there's a conflict. If there's no conflict, I guess what difference does it make? But we won't let him do anything having to do with the conflict.
Are you personally checking to make sure there's no conflict?
Yeah, I am.
He answers to you.
Sure, he does. First of all, he wouldn't do it, and second of all, we're not going to let him do anything where there's a conflict of interest.
Mr. President, your negotiations with the EU there's discussions ongoing already. How quickly do you expect that you'll hear back from them about any of these other measures?
I can't tell you, yeah. The EU's been very nasty. It's just been, they haven't treated us properly. Look, we were great to them on NATO. Essentially, it's a similar group of countries. When I came in, my first term, I raised their fees. I mean, they were not paying. We were paying for, in my opinion, almost all of NATO. And now, I had the bad moment with the press where the press said, well, does this mean you won't protect them? And I said, I won't protect them if they're not paying. But because I said that, the Secretary General, as you know, said it was the greatest thing he's ever seen because the money came pouring in. But they don't treat us right on trade. They don't treat us right on the military either. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, we're in for probably $200 billion more than Europe. Why are we in for more than Europe? We're in for more than Europe. I mean, think of it, or NATO. I mean, not NATO, because Canada's in. By the way, Canada is just about the lowest payer. Also, they shouldn't be. They are just about the lowest payer in NATO, in addition to everything else. So Canada's really been taken advantage of. And if they had to pay just something modestly fair, would be able to succeed as a country. And that's why I feel they have to become a state. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is it your expectation that partners will offer major concessions and that you actually don't end up applying those tariffs?
No, I think that a lot of them will stay the same, and whatever they pay, I'll pay. I mean, we'll have a lot of them stay the same. I think some, look, I heard as an example, EU lowered their tax on cars down to the exact amount that they were much higher. They were approximately 5 times higher, and they lowered them down to the exact tax that we're charging. That took place like yesterday or the day before. Is that a correct statement? I think so, yeah.
Do you expect any exemptions or waivers?
I don't expect that, no. This is a simple system. I mean, there wouldn't be any. And in the case of Apple, I gave them a waiver, exemption in my first term because Samsung was in South Korea. And Samsung didn't have to pay the tax because it was a tax on China. And Apple makes a lot of their product in China. So I did that because it wouldn't have been there. But now this applies to everybody across the board. This is a much simpler way of doing it, much better way.
You had that major call yesterday with President Putin of
Yeah.
Russia. President Zelensky responded today, basically saying any agreements they won't accept unless they're made with Ukraine. Will Ukraine have a seat at that table for those
Of
negotiations?
course they would. I mean, they're part of it. We would have Ukraine, we'll have Russia, and we'll have other people involved too. A lot of people, a lot of forks in the, a lot of forks in this game. I'll tell you what, this is a very interesting situation, but the Ukraine war has to end. The young people are being killed at levels that nobody's seen since World War II, and it's a ridiculous war, and it has to end. We had a good talk with President Putin. We had a good talk with President Zelensky, very good talk. And somebody said, oh, I should have called Zelensky first. I don't think so. I mean, we have to find out whether or not Russia wants to make a deal. I know that Zelensky wants to make a deal because he told me that, but I now know that Russia wants to make a deal.
Did you ask Secretary Hegseth to walk back his comments yesterday saying Ukraine won't join NATO and won't go back to pre-2014
No,
borders because
no,
those
I
are
didn't, no.
bargaining chips you could use?
No, I didn't. Somebody told me to, but I thought his comments were good yesterday, and they're probably good today. They're a little bit softer, perhaps, but I thought his comments from I thought his comments yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening. And long before President Putin, Russia was very strong on the fact that I believe that's the reason the war started, because Biden went out and said that they could join NATO, and he shouldn't have said that. As soon as he said that, I said, you know what? You're going to have a war now, and I was right about that. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
But you don't think it's President Biden's fault, not President Putin? I mean, he's the one.
I think Biden is incompetent, and I think when he said that they could join NATO, I thought that was a very stupid thing to say. When he said, well, it depends if it's in other words, it's okay if Russia does a minor incursion, I thought that was a very foolish thing to say. The other thing that got it started was how badly Milley and these stupid people, the bad generals, how badly they did with Afghanistan. I was going to pull out, but we were pulling out with dignity and strength, and we were going to get our equipment with us and everything else. They are, I mean, what they're doing is, what they did with that, I think Putin looked at that mess, and he says, a great time, I'm going to go in. But what the Americans said, I'm not blaming Americans, but I will say what they said had a big influence on his deciding to go in. Yeah.
When Elon Musk met with Prime Minister Modi earlier today, did he do so as an American CEO, or did he do so as a representative of the U.S. government?
Are you talking about me?
No, Elon Musk.
Elon, I don't know. They met, and I assume he wants to do business in India. But India is a very hard place to do business in because of the tariffs. They have the highest tariffs just about in the world, and it's a hard place to do business. I would imagine he met possibly because he's running a company. He's doing this as something that he's felt strongly about for a long time because he sees what's happening and he sees how the country is really being hurt badly by all of the fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah.
So how does Modi know whether he's meeting with a CEO or meeting with a representative of your government?
What are you thinking about those tariffs? We haven't talked about that.
I think autos are, I think they're all coming more. It's going to bring chips back to our country. It's going to bring automobile. We're going to do a lot more automobile manufacturing in our country. When I did this, when I announced this during the campaign, they were going to build the largest car plant in the world in Mexico. It was almost under construction. And when they heard me make that statement, and they thought I was going to win the election, actually, it was a few months before the election itself. China was building the car plant. It was going to be the largest in the world. They immediately stopped construction. You can see the foundations there. they immediately stopped. When they heard I was doing this, that Detroit, it would have destroyed Michigan. This plant would have taken up more than almost the whole state built. And it would have been very destructive. When they heard me speak, and they said, wow, if he gets in, we're gonna lose our shirt. So they stopped building. That's the impact that tariffs have. Again, you know, I say it, and I say it loudly. It's the most beautiful word, but now I say religion, love, and a couple of other things are more beautiful, because I got in a lot of problem with the fake news when they said, oh, other things are more important. God is more important, but these are the words. But I would say it's number 4 or 5. To me, it's the most beautiful. And I'll tell you what, I think really reciprocal tariffs, those 2 words, reciprocal makes tariffs really fair.
There'd be no exemptions, right? It would be all auto imports?
Any exemptions, no, because you don't need to. With reciprocal, you don't need to.
Mr. President, Gavin Clegg just arrived at the IRS.
Fox Radio. Do you have a update on the TikTok negotiations? And
Yeah,
kind of,
we have a lot of
that
people.
timeline's running out, isn't it?
Sure, well, I have 90 days from about 2 weeks ago, right? And I'm sure it can be extended, but let's see, I don't think you'll need to. We have a lot of people interested in TikTok, and I hope to be able to make a deal. I think it would be good. You know, people have learned it's very popular, and we'll have to approval from China to do it, but we have a lot of people that are interested, and a lot of people, I think China will be interested because it's to their benefit too. So I look forward to that, but we have a lot of people that are interested in TikTok, quite a few.
Mr. President, Doge workers arrived today, Gavin Clegg and others arrived today at the IRS. Do you expect to close the IRS, or what are you expecting?
No, I don't
You
expect
talked
it,
about
but,
the ERS.
but I
Someday.
think that the Internal Revenue Service will be looked at like everybody else. Just about everybody's going to be looked at. So it's they're doing a hell of a job. It's an amazing job they're doing. And you know, that force is building. I call it the force of super geniuses, but it's building. And you know, they go up and they talk to some of the people about certain deals, and the people get all tongue-tied. They can't talk because these people get it. They're very smart people. We need smart people. Yes, Brian.
On tariffs, sir.
Yeah, Brian.
Yes, sir. That during the campaign, it was huge in Pennsylvania as far as bringing back manufacturing. Have you talked to any CEOs since the tariffs were announced on steel and aluminum? What's the feedback from those guys?
They are in love with it. As you know, in Pennsylvania, U.S. Steel is through the roof. They're all through the roof. That's why I didn't want U.S. Steel to make a deal with Japan or anybody else. I think it's going to do great. But I think maybe more than anybody else, the steel companies and aluminum companies, they're in love with what's happened. And this will eventually be the car companies and chip companies. We have to have chips made in this country. Right now, everything's made in Taiwan practically, almost all of it, a little bit in South Korea. But everything, almost all of it is made in Taiwan. And we want it to be made. We want those companies to come to our country, all due respect. You know, they took the business away. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us, and we want that business back. We want it back in the United States. And if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
You
Sir, on
mentioned
tariffs, are you-
pharmaceuticals as well in China. That's national security to bring that back.
Yeah, China and other places. We want to get the pharmaceutical and drug business back into the United States, where it should be, right?
Sir, on tariffs, are you concerned that the countries that would be most affected, like India, would just shift their trading to China?
No, I'm not concerned about anything, really. I mean, I'm just doing what's fair. This is a very fair thing. This should have been done a long time ago. I would have, COVID hit. I was getting ready to do this years ago, and first time we had the most successful economy in history, and then it hit. And I was going to be the thing that I was most waiting to do, but it was awfully hard to do this with Italy and France and Spain, and all those people were dying, and then we put tariffs on. See, I have a big heart.
Sir, on Ukraine, when Putin says that he really wants peace, do you believe him?
Yeah, I do. I believe he wants peace. I believe that President Putin, when I spoke to him yesterday, I mean, I know him very well. Yeah, I think he wants peace. I think he would tell me if he didn't. I'd like to see peace.
Do you trust President
I
Putin?
believe that, I believe that he likes something happen. I trust him on this subject. I think he'd like to see something happen. I think it could have happened a long time ago. I think number one, it shouldn't have started, but it did. And now all those cities are knocked down, like demolition sites. All those beautiful golden towers are knocked down. There's nothing going to replace them. But much more importantly, you lost millions of people. A lot of soldiers, but you lost millions of people. When they knocked down those cities and they're all laying down on the side, lying down just in ashes and all crumbled up concrete, they literally look like a world-class demolition site. And many of them, almost all of them, but many of them. And this should have been done Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility. Okay, who else? Yes, please.
Sir, if you can find a buyer in the United States for TikTok, do you think Xi Jinping will authorize the sale of it?
I'm going to make it worthwhile for China to do it. I think so. I mean, I got to know TikTok because during the election, I ended up with 36% higher than my opponent with youth. Okay, that never happened before. I mean, you know, that's always been a Democrat thing, youth. It became a Trump thing. And I think TikTok, I think Joe Rogan was a part of it. Some of the great people that I did interviews with were a part of it. But I think that TikTok was it was a big part. Look, as you know, we were up by 36% with youth. The Republican was never up with youth. And I focused on TikTok, and I found it to be amazing, very fair. And I think the image of TikTok is different than it was before the election. I think people saw it and they view it as a positive, not a negative. I think it'll be to China's advantage to have the deal be made, yeah.
How much money do you think you'll raise from tariffs on an annual basis?
That's the most interesting question. I think it'll be a staggering amount. It will be the external, I call it the External Revenue Service. That was a name that was devised by a few of us, but I think it's going to be a staggering amount.
We've heard it's the number $1 trillion floated in meetings with senators. Is that a number you thought of?
I don't know, but already the Senate's saying, well, wait a minute, you know, they're looking at some of the numbers and they're saying, whoa, this is, look, we want to, I say America first, I say make America great again. That's what we're doing. This is, I think it's the most important thing I've signed. I've signed some very important things. Right to try was so important. I mean, a lot of important things. Of course, the biggest tax cuts in history. You know, this could be one of the most important things that we've ever signed.
Do you expect the Russians and President Putin to attend the summit in Saudi Arabia?
Eventually, yeah. Not quite yet. It's a little early. They're having a meeting in Munich tomorrow. Russia is going to be there with our people. Ukraine is also invited, by the way. Not sure exactly who's going to be there from any country, but high-level people from Russia, from Ukraine, and from the United States.
Do you want to add Russia back to the G7, sir?
I'd love to have them back. I think it was a mistake to throw them out. Look, it's not a question of liking Russia or not liking Russia. It was the G8, and you know, I said, what are you doing? You guys, all you talk about is Russia, and they should be sitting at the table. I think Putin would love to be back. Obama and a couple of other people made a mistake and they got Russia out. It's very possible that if that was the G8, you wouldn't have had Ukraine. And if I was president, you definitely wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But you ask a very good question, the G8. It used to be the G8 and then these people threw them out. And I was arguing with Trudeau and with numerous of the people. Actually, Prime Minister Abe, a great man from Japan, agreed with me 100%, and some of the others did too. But I got there, it was the G7, as you know. They had already been terminated. I think it would have been very helpful, and it still would be helpful to have Russia be a part of that mix. And I think if they were, I don't think you would have had the problem that you have right now.
Russia is
Out
part of
course,
the
because
G20.
They kicked them out, of course, because they illegally annexed Crimea. I mean, how would you have responded if Russia invaded or
You
took
know,
over?
they took Crimea during Obama. They took, well, now they're looking to take the whole thing. Then they took a big chunk of land and people, as you know, during Bush. And now they're trying to take the whole thing during Biden. You know, the only one that didn't give them anything is Trump. They never took anything with Trump, nothing, not 2 inches of property of land. But Crimea was Obama, and then Bush gave him a lot, you remember. And then, in fact, it's a sort of a standard little phrase, and Biden's giving him everything because this is a war that shouldn't have been had. And the only one that can give him anything is Trump. That's the way it is.
What's the message from Wall Street about these tariffs? So there's been some nervousness on Wall Street about the impact.
So, I mean, there hasn't been very much, and I think it's going to make the United States stronger, and in many ways, it could make other countries stronger. You know, other countries want to have a strong United States. They want to have a strong America, and I think it's going to make us very, very strong, much stronger. And we have a lot of work we're doing on the military. Our military, we have authorized some contracts to be built that are very substantial. We're building the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest military equipment in the world. We're building it. At some point, when things settle down, I'm going to meet with China, and I'm going to meet with Russia in particular, those two, and I'm going to say there's no reason for us to be spending almost $1 trillion on military. There's no reason for you to be spending $400 billion. China's going to be at $400 billion. We're at $1 trillion. We're going to be at close to $1 billion. And I'm going to say we can settle this on, we can spend this on other things. We don't have to spend this on military because, and I'm going to be meeting with China. You know, we were trying to de-escalate nuclear, and I was in a position where Russia had agreed and China had agreed we were going to start, and then we had a rigged election, so that never took place. But this was too big to rig. We won by so much that it was too big to rig.
You want to do the China meeting in the United States, or would you travel to China for that?
For what?
The China meeting.
I tell people, you know, the question is who's going to have the first meeting, where are you going to, I say this to Putin, to President Xi, I say to everybody, never bothered me, you know, I'm willing to say I'll go first. It doesn't matter. It's the end result that counts. So it doesn't make any difference.
When do you want to have a conversation about global defense spending, you, China?
That as soon as things settle down, I'm going to have that conference primarily with China and Russia because those are the two that really are out there. And we're going to spend a lot less money, and we're going to spend a lot less money. And I know they're going to do it. They agreed to it. We were talking about denuclearing, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many you could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear, and China's building nuclear weapons, and China's trying to catch up because, you know, they're very substantially behind, but within 5 or 6 years, they'll be even. And we're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive. Hopefully, there'll never be a time we need those weapons. If there's ever a time when we need nuclear weapons, like the kind of weapons that we're building and that Russia has and that China has to a lesser extent, will have, very sad day. That's going to be probably oblivion.
Do you see that as separate conversations, or do you see one giant summit with you, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, I could see that. Let things calm down a little bit. You know, when I left, we had no Middle East problem. We had no Russia going into Ukraine. They never would have done it. Putin never would have done it. And I came back, the whole world is blowing up. So, when we straighten it all out, then I want to have one of the first meetings I want to have is with President China, President Putin of Russia, and I want to say, let's cut our military budget in half. And we can do that. And I think we'll be able to do it.
If Elon Musk identifies wasteful spending in the Defense Department, defense contractors and the like, are you willing to go after that spending as well?
We have to go waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah, and we're doing that.
Could we, you know, I'm just wondering about your conversations on defense spending. Would you want to do that as a trilateral, or would you use the existing body that also already includes China and Russia, the G20?
No, it's the people. It's President Putin, President Xi. I don't need bodies. I don't need anything. It's people. It's all about people. It's about relationship and people. And, you know, I've had a good relationship with President Putin. I've had a good relationship with President Xi. It's about people. And I think when things straighten out, which I hope will be in the not too distant future, the meeting I want to have first is a meeting with China and a meeting with Russia on slowing down, stopping, and reducing nuclear weapons in particular, and also on not having to spend the kind of money we're all spending on weapons, military weapons generally.
I think my question is, would you have those meetings separately with each of those leaders, or would you try to bring them all together?
Both. You start off separately, and that's what was happening. I was dealing with President Putin. We had really an understanding where we were going to denuclearize. What a beautiful term that is, right? Denuclearize. What a great thing if we could do that. And we were going to, he really liked the idea, and so did I. And we had then called China. China was very open to it. And then COVID hit, and then we had a rigged election. But now there was no rigged election. Now we have an election that was too big to rig. That's what my whole theme was, too big to rig. And they tried, but they didn't pull it off.
Sir, as part of the reciprocal tariffs, would you also direct agencies to study the impact they would have on prices in the U.S.?
No, there's nothing to study. There's nothing to study. It's going to go well. In the United States is going to become a strong economically country. Yeah.
Mr. President, in the past you have spoken against BRICS. India is part of BRICS. Do you want to dismantle BRICS, or you want to US want to be part of it?
I don't care, but BRICS was put there for a bad purpose, and most of those people they don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff the day they mention that they want to do it. And they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that. And I remember when Obama and Biden in particular, I guess he said that, they have us over a barrel. They don't have us over. We have them over a barrel. If BRICS wants to play games, those countries won't trade with us. We won't trade with them. And if any trading gets through, it'll be 100% tariff at least.
On your
What
cabinet,
would be
You know what? When they hear that, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, look what happened to BRICS. They didn't want to talk about it. They don't even want to admit that they were a member of BRICS. That's what's happened.
On your cabinet, sir, we saw Robert Kennedy Jr. get confirmed. He's going to come in here and be sworn in. Mitch McConnell has now voted against several of your nominees. He voted against RF Jr. as the next health secretary. Conspiracy theories. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that he wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even, and that's saying a lot. But the fact is that he raised money and he gave a lot of money to senators, and so he had a little loyalty based on the fact that as leader you could raise a lot of money. Senators would call me and they say, he wants to give me 20, 25 million, can I take it? I'd say, take the money, take the money. But so he engendered a certain amount of, I don't even call it loyalty, he was able to get votes. But I was the one that got him to drop out of the leadership position. So he can't love me, but he's not voting against Bobby. He's voting against me, but that's all right. He endorsed me. Mitch, do you know that Mitch endorsed me, right?
Well, he did.
You think that was easy? What?
He had polio, obviously, and
I don't know anything about he had polio. He had polio.
Are you doubting that he had polio?
I have no idea if he had polio. All I can tell you about him is that he shouldn't have been a leader. He knows that. He voted against Bobby. He votes against almost everything now. He's a very bitter guy. And we have a very strong party, and he's almost not even really a very powerful member. I'd say he's not he's lost his power, and it's affected his vote. And, it's one of those things. But in the meantime, Bobby did great, got more votes than anybody thought, and I think he's going to do phenomenally, just phenomenally in that position. And everybody else likewise did well. Not only well, they got more votes than anybody thought. Tulsi, look at how she did. She did great. Marco got 99 votes. How about that? And Marco got 99 votes. And Marco, by the way, I have to tell you, Marco Rubio's done a fantastic job. He's been a great Secretary of State. They're all doing great. But we're going to have a swearing in today, and maybe we're going to have a second one because I hear we have a couple of them coming up. And the man behind me is doing a fantastic job, Secretary of Commerce. And I think you're going to see something very big come from today's signing. This is going to be a very important signing. Okay?
U.S. Steel, sir, can I ask very quickly? You said you meet with the head of that company and the Japanese
Yeah,
company.
U.S. Steel is going to be here, and a lot of the steel companies are coming. I think steel companies, they love what's happening to them. We saved it. If I didn't do the tariffs from my first term, you wouldn't have one steel company here. You wouldn't have one steel. There wouldn't be a steel company alive in the United States. And right now, they're going to be thriving. They're doing very well, but they're going to be thriving. They're going to be coming out. People are going to want to buy those steel companies like crazy.
Are you still planning to mediate talks between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel?
Yeah, I don't know. I think U.S. Steel right now has all the power. The tariffs have given U.S. Steel
I'm writing lines to lift his name, no need for fame. My spirit fed, his word is spread, saves the aim. Pen to paper, truths I scribe, a soulful vibe. To glorify the Most High, let's amplify. I am spreading the faith I hold so dear, for every tear he's ever near. Choirs rise on Sunday morn, His love we adorn. Each melody a testimony, hearts reborn. In every